Okie dokie, friends, let's start. Welcome everybody to the fourth or five, I don't want to be in this one, series of the Meet a Professor at EFRIT. Thank you all for coming. I realized that I didn't send a specific email to the new grad students, so if any of you have their number, their contact info, the new grad students that are coming to EFRIT, send them a text. They might miss 20% of the thing, but something is better than nothing. So, today we have the immense pleasure of having Chloë Hebborn be our speaker. She will introduce herself. I just want to say I met her during an online talk, I don't know, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, and I had an instant scientific crush on her because she's super cool. She gives very, very nice presentation, and it's just a pleasure to hang out. And then we met here because she became a faculty and I became me. So it's a pleasure to have her. Be sure to ask her good questions. She's going to show us some slides. We have 5 if you haven't grabbed any. And after that, I shut up. Chloë, all yours. Go for it. And after that, I put your slides and I shut up.
Does this stuff working?
That stuff should be working if we connect it.
Put it on.
We need to connect it.
Okay, so I have to say, when doing these slides, I had no idea what you wanted to hear about. So this is a selection, but please ask me questions. And if you're bored, I'm sorry. I just try to think, what did I want to hear as a student or postdoc?
Can you check if it works? Excellent. Okay, I shut up.
So I'm Chloë. I've been at EFRIT for 1 year, and before I was a fellow, so I was working for EFRIT when I was visiting often, but I was in Livermore. So I decided what I wanted to hear. So please, if you have a question, like help me. I'm going to do one thing about research because I was thinking probably you don't want to hear about what I'm doing, but how I arrived there. So my research is doing prediction for nuclear reactions, so nuclear reaction theory, and it means basically to infer information from measurements that are done in this lab, in many labs, especially radioactive ion beam facilities. And so the goal is if you send a nucleus and you have all these reaction channels, you decide to measure one or the other, depending on the group, then you want to try to infer information from the data you get about the initial nucleus. And to do this process, you need a reaction theory. And this is what I've been working on for all my career. So it's just I'm changing reaction probe over the years, but it's still reaction theory. So I started studying in 2010, and I'm actually an engineer. I'm not a physicist at first. And in 2013, I decided to study economics, and I will explain a bit why. At this point, I decided that I wanted to do 2 studies at the same time, so doing an undergrad in economics and a master in physics, and master engineering physics, so still engineer. And then, because I met somebody special, I decided to do a PhD in nuclear physics, already on reaction theory. And the first time I came to EFRIT was in 2019, where I did a school and then an interview for the EFRIT fellowship. And so I was a EFRIT fellow for 3 years in Livermore, and since last year, I'm an assistant professor here. And I think this pointer doesn't work. So, okay, well. And so I listed some stuff that I did in this time. So my PhD was really focused on the economic approximation in different kind of observables. In the fellowship, I changed a bit the angle. I was still doing reaction theory, but doing ab initio reaction theory, some uncertainty quantification, and some EFT actually. And now I'm still working on similar topics, but when you become a professor, you have like other kind of responsibilities. So you don't only work for yourself anymore, you work with students, postdoc, and you have to write grants. And this is some of the responsibilities that you have. And so what I wanted to show you with this timeline is basically I changed my mind a lot, especially in the beginning. And I will explain you how I arrived to do this, and I will tell you what I think about this kind of weird journey. Okay, so I'm from Brussels. This city is awesome. Nobody wants to visit it because you have Paris next to it, and so everybody wants to avoid it, but Brussels is awesome. So this is a view from the center, the one on the top right. So this point doesn't work. This one on the top right. So this is actually a view that you can easily see. So Brussels is in Belgium, and you have very good thing, chocolate, fries, beers, waffles. So it's really a city where people know how to live. The only downside is the weather, but you get used to it. And so from Brussels, I decided to, so this is actually a picture of my high school in Brussels. I found it on Google. And it was one of the largest high schools in Brussels. And at the end of my study, I was very undecided about what I wanted to do. And so I was hesitating with sociology, law, chemistry, math, or engineering. But for sure it was not going to be physics because I hated physics. I hated my physics high school professor, which we can remove from the footage. And so I was like, clearly, I'm not going to study physics. And so then I decided to go for engineering because it was kind of gathering a lot of things I like math, chemistry, actually, I guess math and chemistry. And then, so this is a picture of the campus in Brussels. So it's really a place I spend a lot of time. So you go down the engineering building somewhere on the left. Here's a huge library, here like a food corner. So it's a place that I spend a lot of time as a student. So it was not the only change of school. I also moved out from my parents when I was 17, so quite young. And it was also figuring out, for example, how to do laundry. Because I never did it before. I was lucky enough that my parents were doing it for me. But when I left, my parents offered me a washing machine and said, you don't come back with the laundry. So that was clear I had to learn. And so I started engineering, and honestly, I didn't like it in the beginning, to be completely honest. So when I started at the university, 1/3 of the students were participating in hazing, and so I didn't want to do that, and so I felt a bit excluded, and people were putting a bit of pressure. So I had to Google it because the word I have in French is different. So basically, this fraternity, to join them, in Belgium, the fraternity organized in a different way. You have some kind of rituals to enter. And this often include humiliation, and depending on the fraternity, and of course, depending on the people doing it. But so it was really 1/3 of the students in my year were doing it. So it was really present. They were always talking about activity, trying to convince me. And so I was a bit annoyed with that because I didn't want to join the fraternity. Classes were very hard. My high school was not that good, so it was really difficult. In January, I failed 3 exams out of 8, and physics was one of them, by the way. And I really thought, I'm too stupid to do engineering. I remember sitting down with my parents, like, I'm never going to make it. And I said, try until the end of the year. And as an engineer, you have a few women. So I think my class maybe were 15, 20%. So there was a lot of sexist jokes. And so I didn't like to be that much on campus. Actually, I like to be on campus with my friends from other faculty, but I didn't like to be on campus with the engineering people. But then things got better. So basically, at some point, they joined the fraternity. So all these discussions were over. I finally made some friends in my group. And I participated to some kind of help desk to learn how to study. So I was kind of supervised studying for 1 week. And this really helped me. And then I passed my year with 60%, which I didn't was enough. But I was clearly, I was not a top A student. But I passed, and I had 3 months of vacation. I was very happy. And in this year, even if I failed it, the physics professor was really good. And I started liking physics. Like, this is cool, actually. There's so much stuff to understand, and I don't understand it. So between 2010 and 2016, so at the end of my master, I have to say, since I didn't like much the atmosphere engineering, I didn't go much to lecture. I went to exercise session quite a lot. So all the afternoon were busy, and the morning I was studying, but for it, I had some free time. And during these years, as I said, I was not an excellent student. I was passing, but not an excellent student. I spent a lot of time volunteering in Scouts. So that's a picture of a Scout tent. So we did different kind of activity, but clearly it was taking a lot of my time, and I was taking care of teenagers, so between 12 and 18. I spent a lot of time traveling with my friends. So that's a picture of me in Vietnam at the border of China. I have to say this was in 2017, but I thought it was fun enough. And it's something, so because Chloë is going to tell about her passion, I really like to travel. And I think the way I organize this map is clearly non-exhaustive, but this was the place I think I've been doing, I forgot to organize this map. I think this was doing my PhD, and this was doing my study in red. And some of the places in Europe, I didn't put it twice, but basically Europe, I traveled a lot. So I used to make 3 months of free time. I didn't do research. I just traveled, and I really liked it. And in 2013, I chose the physics minor. So this is basically because you have to choose a master in Belgium. So I took physics engineering, which come on measuring stuff, beta decay, gamma spectroscopy, more like what an experimentalist would do, I guess. I was not very good at it. And so, yeah, so now the physics class has started, but the problem is that I'm realizing I hate engineering. After 3 years of doing that, I'm like, okay, this is done. I should have gone for social science. So I'm coming to my parents and like, I have a new plan. I'm going to finish my undergrad and I'm going to do another one. And my parents say, sure, let's go. And then the physics class starts. I think it was a condensed matter physics that started. and stuff like this. And I start to really enjoy it. I say, quitting when it's going to be fun. That's kind of a pity. So then the new plan was to do both in parallel, which was kind of crazy. So not much sleep during exam session, this I can tell you. And then the goal after that was to say, okay, I will do a PhD in economics. So that was clearly my goal. So now I'm in the last year. I need to find an advisor. And I chose Pierre Capel. I didn't know what he was working on. I just knew he was a nice guy. So I decided to contact him. He had the description of a research project on the economic approximation, which I had no idea what it was. I was like, I don't understand it, but let's go with somebody nice. And basically, I started working on reaction theory, and I really got hooked. I got hooked in the question. I'm pretty certain that I could have get hooked in other questions in economics, but now I had like a good things going with a guy that I found very nice in a question that interests me. So I decided to apply for the PhD fellowship. And what I can tell you was a weird feeling, because this PhD fellowship in Belgium are quite competitive. And so I clearly felt I was not smart enough. I didn't have the grade, you know, that was kind of difficult. So it was a long shot. But there was an interview, 15 minutes interview that I rehearsed, I think, maybe 150 times in 3 months, honestly. The words were spitting out of my mouth. And it worked out. So in the end, I could do a PhD with this PhD fellowship. So sometimes it works. But the thing is, the day we have to submit the fellowship, my advisor is telling me, actually, I'm going to leave to Germany. So I will not be there for your PhD. I will be there 3 months next year, and that's it. So I told him back then, it's okay. If I don't like it, I quit. He said, okay. That was the deal. And so we work remotely. And when I think about this, I didn't realize when I was in this department, but when I see you in FRIB, I'm going to give you some context. It's very small research environments. There was no seminar, and there was one PhD student who was my friend. But you know, you already a lot, and it's okay, not whole FRIB, so it was really a different environment. And so, yeah. After my PhD years, there was a lot of up and downs. So if you have them, I think it's normal. Sometimes you feel like everything that you're doing is bad. I'm trying not to swear, but and you're very, very slow. And basically, what I've been working for the 3 first years, I really tried an hypothesis and basically didn't work. After 3 years of working, you're like, okay, great, I contributed to the literature so that something is not working. But okay, some papers came out of it, but I felt a bit discouraged because even going to conferences, you know, you explain, you can try this, it's not working. People are not very super enthusiastic. It's not the most fun stuff to do. And yeah, I wanted to, I don't know if some of you have been at meetings and conferences, but for me, it was the first experience of bullying, like active bullying. And so it was also difficult to understand how to deal with that. And I think I'm still learning. So I think it's sadly a pretty common experience. So it's not something that probably most of you would experience or see happening. And it's not easy. And I know that at this time, I asked for help, and I asked for help every time people I trusted. So if it happens to you, I really invite you to ask somebody more senior or even your friends for some feedback. Okay, so 2 years remotely of the PhD. So I worked 1 year on the master and then 2 years of the PhD on this project. Not working, I'm depressed. I'm like, what should I do? And then I decided to go 3 months in Germany. I didn't want to go there. Really, I preferred Brussels. But somehow I ended up staying for 2 years, mostly because I met my partner there. So this was not for the research, but since I met him, I decided to stay. My advisor was happy, but it was killing us for him. And this was a very different university. It's Mainz University in Germany. So it's next to Frankfurt. So I didn't put it on my map, but next to Frankfurt. It's kind of a smallish town, like 250,000 person. You have the Rhine passing by, so it's quite a pretty, it's next to the wine valley, it's really a pretty place. And they have a huge physics university. They even have a lab there. So this was completely different. You had seminars all the time, a bit like here. I had seminars all the time, so I could really get exposed. So this was actually pretty exciting. And arriving to the end of my PhD, I was like, okay, do I really like it? I mean, sometimes I'm depressed, sometimes I like it. So, you know, like I was really confused. And I was like, do I want to keep on doing this journey? I'm guessing it's something you, probably some of you experience or are experiencing. So I know I can tell you what was useful for me. There were 2 things that were useful. The first one was a mentoring program that was offered by the University of Mainz. And this was for women in particular, but minorities in general. And this we could discuss about what we like, and it really kind of centered me. And then my main problem is that I didn't know at all what I wanted to do. All over my career, it has been like that. So I didn't know. And they weren't sure if they have to give me a mentor, like from the academic system, because this would be only useful for academic system, or a coach. So I went with a coach, and he really was like, okay, let's try it. In this condition, I will accept. In this other condition, I will. And something that has been instrumental as well is the talent school that happened here in 2019. Maybe this is when we met, because I don't remember meeting you online, but okay. So this talent school was on reaction theory, and I met a lot of people, and this is the moment I met Sofia Coglioni, that became my mentor after in Livermore, and gave me, I wrote an email because I wanted to work with her, so to apply for a fellowship, not the Hebborn one, but another one. And it's also the time where I was in 2019, and for the reaction theory student, it's going to be funny, but I went and I asked Philomena if she wanted to work with me, and I was so scared. It took me 3 weeks to send her an email to say, do you want to work with me on this thing? And even now she doesn't remember, but for me, it was like really, I had to think a lot about it. No, it's okay. Back then it was quite scary. Okay, so then applied to the free theory fellowship, and I got it, which was surprising at that time, and it was a bit scary. And then COVID hit. So I spent a year working remotely for California. Actually worked very efficiently, weirdly. And I was going to the university where nobody was there, and I kept my office there, so I was working from there. And it was weird because I had to work with all of these people that I never met. I just met Sophia for 5 days, and now I'm like in a Zoom with all the people I never met, not even in person. I don't know how tall they are, like it's kind of a weird feeling. And weirdly, I became friends with one of them through Zoom. So, like it can be something. So then I arrived in California. I really enjoyed the group. There's clearly a difference in the way Europe and the US organize their research. So my experience is that in the US, we meet all the time. In Europe, you don't meet. And I have to say, I think it's really nice because you're learning together instead of learning alone, and you share resources. So this was really, really a change of scenery for me. And especially I decided to change my direction. So I completely supported my advisor. I still had paper, but I really focused on my new group. And so it was actually nice to learn something new. And here you can see a picture. I think it was actually one of the last day I was there. I think it was a dinner for my departure. And actually the new African fellow is here. She was visiting, especially weirdly. And so we used to go often for lunch outside in the sun. It's California, so it's always sunny. And what I think is important is that even in this African fellowship, I still did what I like. I traveled a lot. I explored California a lot, and it was really fun. So, and this is gonna, I think, come up actually my last slide. But so now these 2 last slides, and you can ask me any question after. I want to emphasize the importance of having mentors. So these mentors don't especially have to work with you, but you can ask somebody to have a mentor, because when you're somebody to be your mentor, when your research can be lonely, and it's good to have input from people who have more experience, but it doesn't have to be a professor. It can even be a postdoc. It can be somebody close to you in any case. And so I know that for me, I had my mentor, my PhD advisor in Europe, but then I had 3 mentors in the US. 2 came with the Food Theory Fellowship, and Philomena, she was not officially my mentor, but I put her there because I think she was. And so they really encouraged me in the process. During COVID, they were supporting, and they also encouraged to apply for a faculty job quite early. And this is how I ended up here. So, and the weird thing is that when you're being mentored, then you become a mentor. So the cycle never stops, I think it's always like that in research. You learn something and then you pass it to the next one. So, and actually it's very enjoyable. And I know that my mentor are happy I'm a mentor, so it's starting to be kind of a convoluted loop. And this is my last slide, some advice. I'm saying last because it's the last slide, but probably not the last advice. So something that I know can be depressing in research is when you have the feeling that everything that you do is not good and other people are doing better than you some topics. So I would say focus really less on what is the outcome on what you're getting, but more what you learn. So for my PhD, as I mentioned, most of the stuff I did didn't work. It didn't work, and we published negative papers that are not cited, but I learned a lot. When things not working, you learn a lot because you have to understand why. And honestly, you saw it, it's okay to change your mind. It's okay to doubt. Just plans change, like hobbies change or what you like to do change. The second thing that I think is really, really important is to take care of yourself. So don't overwork yourself, because otherwise you will never enjoy the experience. And if the goal is not the results, but what you learn and how you learn it, this is what I would say. You have to keep your hobbies and doing stuff that makes you feel good and surround yourself with people you like and being nice to other people. It's really a social endeavor doing research. So it's really important to be surrounded with nice person. And if you feel overwhelmed, even if you feel that you really have to finish something, take a break. Take a break, because when you're overwhelmed, nothing is going to happen. Take a break, you go for a walk, and then you come down, and then you can go back to it. So if you have different challenges in your journey, so I mentioned bullying or difficult situations socially, don't be afraid to ask for help. It actually shows strength to be able to ask for help. It's not something, don't deal with it alone, because it can be difficult and very lonely. And I'm sure that most of the people that you would go to actually experience that. So you can actually bounce ID, or if you go to somebody more experienced, they might have a path for you to feel better. And more on the career part, I guess, for those who are applying. So when you're applying to a position, you're thinking, maybe it's not really, or maybe you are not, but I was thinking, maybe I don't really have the competency, the abilities, or it's not really my topic. So if I thought that for the Victory Fellowship, I would have never applied, and I would have never come in the US, actually. The thing is that I didn't know what was a Victory Fellowship when I applied, to be honest. So it was just a random click. But I think then I kept on doing that. I apply if I was seeing myself somewhere. And the worst thing that can happen is that you receive a no. Nothing else. Is not, applications are complex and process of recruitment are complex. They have different kind of criteria. But yeah, so if you're in this position where you have to apply, don't self-censor yourself. Apply, and the worst thing that can happen is a no. And I think I want to finish by saying this. Everybody in this lab, I think, even the most senior person, are all figuring out while they're doing it. So it's okay to not have a full plan done. This is all I prepared for you. And nobody interrupt me with questions, because I speak too fast.
Perfect. We open the room. Let's. We started the open discussion questions and comments for Chloe. And I have the microphone. Remember how we do this. Okay. Excuse me, friends. Thank you.
So you said you did your undergrad in economics, one of them. What was your favorite part of economics? Macro, micro, theory applied?
Micro. I wanted to do a PhD in public policies. So I was really liking Keynes. So, like how you can influence the inflation towards using different public policies toward labor. So I was basically micro public policy linked to labor.
Interesting.
But and I told my friends who did a PhD actually in similar direction, and one of them is in DC now. So like it's spread around. And the other one is a university professor in Belgium. So spread around.
More questions.
This is the dumb one. Is Rigger in the video? Is in that picture with the California people?
That's a good question. Probably is there, but
I don't have any real questions other than that.
I mean, this is Linda. This is Sky. And maybe this is Igor next to her.
Oh,
It's really blurry.
More questions. I have a ton, so I can start monologuing if needed. Yeah, so with all of the uncertainty along your path, how did you find the transition from trying to figure out which direction to go and, finding your mentors to like being a mentor and, pioneering your own research direction?
So I think that, so how did I figure out? That's a good question. For me, I feel like the way I chose the people I was going to work with is because I like them somehow in a human side. And so this was the reason why I applied to Livermore. I met Sophia and I thought like, she's really cool. I want to work with this woman and she's doing stuff that I think are fun. So this is how it shows. And then it happens that when I was doing it, I found some link to make a cohesive research direction. So I think if you do nuclear physics in general, you can always find a link, and like to put a story together. Sometimes it requires some thinking, but you can do different stuff and put them back together. And what was the second part of your question?
Oh, like going from, following someone's research path to, forging your own path forward.
Yeah, so I guess in my experience, so in the PhD, we clearly followed the plan that my advisor had put forward for me. And then when I had to apply, I had this idea that I wanted to do optical potential ab initio that I worked on, but is not done. And so there was a will to go to more microscopic. And so the thing is that this F-Theory fellowship was kind of dropping me directly in this world, meaning that nobody was telling me what to do. So then I had to decide what I wanted to do. And I knew that I was working already with Philomena, so I knew that I wanted to put this side of my research and I wanted to work with people at Livermore. And then if you invest your time in a new place, you will meet a lot of people. So I work with Gregory Potel alone, and then I work with the ab initio group, and then I discuss with another guy doing a Bayesian UQ called Put. So I think somehow everything fit together, but I'm not sure if it was always conscious, like, I need to do this, like it was, I like these people, I find the subject interesting, and I was like, how do I put this stuff together? And then I was thinking, what is the goal that we all have? Is to learn about nuclear properties in general with impact on astro application, what you want. And so whatever you do in nuclear physics, you can link it around learning about nuclear properties. So yeah.
Okay.
And yeah, I was put in a position where I didn't really have the choice to be independent. I don't know. Probably is not especially good advice, but I don't know how I did it. I know it happens because I'm saying we figure out when we're doing it.
Cool. Thanks.
More questions? How do you deal with the bullying situation? Have you found similar things later? Have you been able to deal with them differently?
So I know the first time I had this, it was I was feeling really bad. I was feeling bad every time I got this, but I was really feeling very down. And this person insinuated that I was there because I was a woman. And it was bullying, was sexist. It was really not okay. The thing is that what changed for me is to have two women mentors, because some of the microaggression I was feeling, my advisor couldn't understand it but never lived it. And being able to discuss with Sophia and Philomena about this was really key, because they could understand which kind of microaggression, what was making me feel uncomfortable in a very, one thing that I learned is that often when you're being bullied or harassed, bullied, let's say, you feel that this person prepared like 10 years of plan to bully you. Like this is what you feel. You feel that probably this person has planned in this bed like this time. And I think that most of the time, probably some people do that, most of the time it's coming from non-knowledge and lack of empathy. I think this is but it's not something that's prepared to make your life a nightmare. And so when you accept that, it's easier to deal with, because then you can try to address it. You can say, this is not okay. You can talk to me like that. And if you feel uncomfortable, which happens, sometimes you can ask for a senior person to be there to help for this discussion.
Thank you, Chloe. I have tons of more questions, but more questions from you folks. By the way, I'm going to take the opportunity to, now that we have seen 4 or 5 people on this, to ask the audience. They are all super diverse, and Chloe is our first theorist, but were you able to pick among the many diverse things that they have, the thing that they all have in common?
They're teachers?
They are teachers, indeed. They're professors at EFRIT. At some point, we're going to break that because I want to invite other people that are not professors that will have a very nice story to share. But beyond that, yes, thank you. Do you identify anything else? Me neither, and that's the point, that there are many different ways of achieving this. So more questions from you folks that you want to ask Chloe. I continue monologuing. As a theorist, how is your day-to-day life in research? Because we heard from the experimentalists, and how is it look to do theory? You do math all day? You do integrals? You practice integrals?
Depends on the stage of the career. Like, and depends on the time and what I want to do and what are the activity I have. So, for example, this week I'm starting teaching. So these days I'm going to be very focused on teaching. Last week I was in a conference, so I discussed with a lot of people and I was able to run some calculations, so doing research on my own. It really depends on the time of the year. And actually, it's what I like about it. It's not always the same. So basically, it's between reading papers. I read a lot of papers. I go to a lot of conferences and follow seminars. And this I enjoy a lot. I meet with my students and postdocs. It's also very enjoyable because I'm seeing them learn. And I'm preparing my class, but I didn't have to teach last semester. So
I have heard many people. Oh, yes.
Some more.
I have heard many people excited about the reaction. That's
Very good. I hope I will not disappoint.
Eric. No, because you need to record.
Oh, you need to record it.
Yes, go ahead. I got you, Mike.
All right, so you've been in the U.S. for a while. Are there any things that you miss from Europe or Brussels or anything, like the food or anything like that?
So I've been in the US for 3 years, I think, since last week. There are things I miss about Europe, mainly linked to my family and friends. The organization of the city, you know, you can move yourself way easier without a car. And the food, which is, yeah. The food as well. But there are things that, for me, there are things I didn't expect in the US. So this I didn't say, but when I decided to accept the FTA fellowship, it was actually very hard, even if it was a very prestigious position, because my partner got a position in Belgium. So I was like, okay, maybe I should just stop and go to Belgium, which clearly I didn't decide to do, otherwise I would not be here. So I decided to go to California, and to be honest, I was like, if in 6 months I don't like it, I go back. Whatever position I got, you know, like 6 months I don't feel good, I go back. And actually met friends, and I really love the research environment. That was really something that I enjoy. I don't know if somebody studied in Europe or did a postdoc in Europe before, and it's quite different. I don't know where you were. I'm seeing that you were saying, were you in Europe? I can use an app, right? Next to Brussels.
Yeah, not too far.
And I guess it's different. I never been to Keulen. I guess it's quite different, no?
I was supposed to go, but COVID hit, so it kind of ruined a lot of stuff. But
you miss the fries and everything, yeah?
Yeah,
They
yeah.
also have good fries there.
More questions? You have. Okay, I'm already here. I don't want to move.
I was wondering, when you chose to do theory, were you ever considering experiment, or was it pretty clear from your engineering experience that you wanted to go?
So honestly, I didn't think I was going to do physics. So this was a bit of a, it just depend because I met my advisor.
Mhm.
And what it shows is that I didn't like experimental stuff. Like I had to sit in labs, see that gamma ray spectroscopy. Like this, I don't like it. And it was a bit of a nightmare. We had books where we had to recognize the isotopes, and I was like, probably you don't use that here, but it was really kind of a nightmare. And then I did, my master was actually more focused on optics and photonics. So I did a lot of laser physics. And this I didn't like because this is going to sound stupid, but you know, in optics, you have like the table that is pressured. And I was always pushing on it. And the professor was killing me with this look. And also like you had to remove some kind of protection along the optic fiber. And then it can really come in your finger. It's really difficult to remove. And I spend my time having that on my finger because I had like maybe 12 hours of lab of optics per week for a semester. And I was like, okay, this is not for me. It's requiring too much patience. You know, like you have your optic stuff and then you're on the table and then you get yelled at. So it was, I decided that the experiment was not for me.
Understandable.
Friends? Great.
And out of curiosity, what is the astrophysical interest of the reactions you're studying?
So there is different ways. So you can try to measure some reaction in a direct way. So for example, some capture reactions, so two nuclei fusing together, emitting a gamma. And so you can try to predict it for astrophysical purpose, and you put in nucleon cities network, and you can predict all kinds of processes. So that's one way. So then people try to measure, but you have to extrapolate to 0 energy because you cannot measure that.
Mhm.
The other way is that you can use indirect probe. So for example, if you, and this is a reaction I work on, so that's easy, but there are many of them. Or if you do, for example, a DP reaction, so you come with your deuteron, you come on a target, and after that you form a bond state. And so this is the target, and this is the A+1 state, and a proton going out. What you can do when you analyze this reaction, so this typically done here, is that you can extract information about this system, and so you can extract something about the neutron capture. And you can do this exercise with a lot of stuff. You can do that with 6 lithium D, so you make alpha D, 6 lithium, and you drop an alpha. This is the target before in the neutron channel, the exit channel. And here you would have an A plus alpha system, and the deuteron going out. And so if you do this kind of transfer reaction, but you can do that with breakup with other kind of probe, you can infer information about this system and about the capture relevant for astrophysics. And this is done a lot because we cannot make direct measurements on exotic beams, on exotic nuclei. So then what you do is that you transfer them as a beam. Probably you need to put a lithium-6 target and do this reaction via the kinematics, but that's the idea. And so there are some nuclei you're interested for structure reason. So how the shell structure evolve away from stability. And some of them you're more interested for basically constraining the astrophysical rate of the neutron capture, alpha capture.
Cool. So do you study then specific reactions, or is it more of a general framework that you then apply to?
So the thing is that the framework of transfer reaction is quite known. So what I did in my fellowship is I focused on the alpha D capture, direct capture. So no surrogate, no proxy probe, alpha D capture. And this we did it in an ab initio way. So we had a stronger predictive power because we had a nucleon-nucleon interaction and stuff. So this is how it's done. But then we use this prediction of lithium-6 because this requires prediction of lithium-6 to analyze 6 lithium D data on carbon-12 and carbon-13, which are two important reactions for the alpha burning in S process. So for the moment, I've done specific cases, but you can do it in different cases. I'm thinking about other ideas that can be improved.
Okay.
I like the astrophysics angle as well.
Cool, thank you.
But the good thing is that you can use a similar model when you're doing a structure study or astro study. Just maybe you're not going to look at the same quantity, but the model you're using is the same.
More questions? In your PhD, were there moments where you felt, no way, Jose, I'm not going to be able to go through this?
Honestly, all the time.
All the time, 24/7.
It was often like, you do something, you don't manage, you feel like you're not good, that probably they made a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
And then you're like, why am I doing this? And then you're like, okay, let's see tomorrow, and the next day is better. But it was something recurring each time I was trying to do something that was not working. I have to say that I have the feeling that I still do some stuff sometimes it's not working. But this feeling of like, oh my God, questioning all my life has stopped. At some point, you learn that is normal. Everybody gets stuck. So yeah, for me, I really hesitated to leave after 2 years before going to Germany.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was 2 years remote in a small institution. We have no seminars. It's quite difficult. So I was hanging out a lot with statisticians, actually. And then just before applying for postdoc, I was like, okay, do I really want to do this?
Mm-hmm.
And the coach that I went to see made me do an exercise that I found very interesting. So I'm going to share with you. You can try at home. She asked me to make some kind of what do you call that? A lifetime table? No, probably not. So ligne du temps, a
Timeline?
Yeah, lifetime line. Yeah. And basically, I had to have like 5 criteria. One was work, one was hobby, one was family and friends, one was happiness. So, and I had to go over all the years. And for example, if work was bad, I was the curve going down, but friends could have been good at the same time. And then I could correlate how my happiness was going with work, family, friends, hobbies. And then you can try to say, okay, this makes me happy. But sometimes it can be overwhelming. So this exercise made me realize that in the moment where the research was really exciting, I was excited. And I was like, okay, then it's worth trying to do a bit more. But yeah, it was, and then you also understand why certain period of your life has been more difficult. So
Yeah.
it was actually a good exercise.
More questions for Chloe? We have 15 more minutes that we can annoy her.
Since in your slide, you mentioned that don't worry, it's okay. That if you do not know the problem, all of them, but you will figure it out during when you try to do it. But as a professor, is that make some change if you want to choose some topic or problem for the student or the postdoc? Do you prefer to have a rough picture of all the problems, or you prefer to take adventure with the students? I mean, just
So
for
I
one
think
risky problem.
I can tell you how I'm thinking now, but since I just started, maybe I will revisit this answer in some years, you know. But so the way I think about it is that it's important to start by a problem that is not too complex, because you have to learn each other as well. You know, you have the problem that you have to learn, but you have to learn how you work together. So you don't want to add having to learn how to work together, having to learn the problem. So I prefer to choose a problem that I see the path very clearly. But I think in the PhD, something when you know how you work, you know a bit your strengths and weaknesses in both sides, huh? Like I'm talking the advisor and the advisee, then you can actually think in trying to be more adventurous. But as a first project, you know, I wouldn't give something super hard. And also a postdoc compared student has more experience, so you can start in another place. But I think it's increasing in complexity. Because otherwise, if you get lost, then it can be frustrating. So it's good to start with something where you feel more comfortable. So I have a list of projects that I estimate. Easy is probably not the right word, but at least I know where I'm going, and I have a list of projects like there will be some thinking there.
Yeah.
Do I hold it? Okay. Can you talk a little bit about the difference between working at a national lab and being a professor? I know that I remember one time I was talking to you while we were like both at the kitchenette, and you said like the big difference is teaching, and that one's obvious, but maybe about like the work demands and kind of like the culture and stuff like that.
Okay, so I was in a national lab, but I didn't work. I was working for F3 officially, so there are some stuff that I had to do that I didn't, like time cards. So the concept is that every week you have to fill a timetable saying for which project you work. So that's something different. You have more freedom in a university. So in national lab, you don't have that much students. So you have students visiting over the summer, so 3 months. So then you have a lot of students at once, and then they are not there. So it's really a different environment for that. What I enjoyed as a fellow is that since you don't have much students and you only have postdoc and staff, is that it was quite a difficult is probably not the word, elaborated discussion. You know, there was no teaching moment, it was like directly into the topic. So I learned a lot. But personally, I like to have students around. So that's something important. And then in national lab, it depends on which lab. So Livermore and Los Alamos, I think, work in a similar way. Argonne, for example, not. So in Livermore and Los Alamos, let's talk only about Livermore, but I think Los Alamos works similarly. You have like programmatic funding. So meaning the group I was in is nuclear data and theory. So they had to do evaluation of some cross-section. So often neutron capture on actinide because it's a national lab and this is what they're interested in. So if that you want it or not, you're going to work a bit for the lab. And then they could ask for scientific funding, so basic funding, like they call it, to do any research they want. So it's an interplay between what they have to do for the lab and what they have to do for themselves. And some of them have managed to attract more funding, so it depends on the situation.
Question?
But yeah, otherwise, I think the presence of students and the fact that you walk behind a fence, like that's also an aspect. But for example, in Argonne, I believe that they're only doing basic research. They don't have a programmatic funding, so it really depends on the lab. So in 2020, I couldn't go. Trump removed all visa authorization, so I couldn't arrive in the US. So I started to work for them in October 2020, but I arrived in the US. I arrived in Livermore in September 2021. Ah, yeah?
It's almost.
Yeah. So yeah, we had some meetings online.
I have a hard question, so feel free to say no. I don't want to answer that one. You're clearly a successful story. Do you have experiences from colleagues and friends that didn't make it or were not as successful, and can you identify reasons why? I'm thinking from undergrad, grad school, people that said, you know, I didn't have a good advisor, for example, and I left, or even postdoc and faculty.
Yeah. So in undergrad, I think they kind of all made it. Maybe someone have failed a year, but at the end they ended up engineers. In master, I think we all, so it was engineering physics was like 12 person, and I think everybody engineers and a lot of people did research. So master in Europe is quite common. So you don't do research, especially if you do a master. So 6 of them. And to tell you how good or bad I was a student, recently one of my friends told me, like, I really would have never guessed that you would be the one sticking to research. I was like, okay, thank you. That's kind of passive aggressive, but okay. But no, so 6 of them went for PhD, and I believe they all finished by now. And I think maybe one of them is doing a postdoc in the UK, but I'm not sure. So I know that one of my colleagues, honestly, I felt he was really, really good at what he was doing, but he got discouraged because something didn't come exactly like he wanted. And so somehow he didn't have the will to try. But I don't know if he finished his PhD. So all of the people I know finished their PhD. And now he's doing a job he likes in Brussels. So he has a kid, he has an apartment, and he's happy. So I don't know if it would not be a success story. Just, he was thinking he wanted to do academia, and then he left. But he left and he seems happy. So I don't really think about somebody who are really like, okay, they failed. Actually, yeah, okay, I'm thinking about somebody now. But no, but this person had so that's didn't take care of themselves very well. So, and they kind of had a breakdown. And so they left academia, but it was for the best that they left.
Yeah.
But I think that was a good example of somebody who was overworked, didn't sleep, didn't eat, and then things break down.
Yeah.
So it's really, and this person wanted to be also a professor. So it's really important to take care of yourself in the process.
Yeah.
So yeah, but now I had some news recently, and this person was going, okay, so I don't see it as a failure. You know, that life experience add up, and you become whatever you become, and you learn along the way.
Any more questions for Chloe? I have one more for the final, but we still have time. If you can go back, what would you do better to get to the situation you or the place you want to be now? You know, if that makes sense.
That's a good question. I think I like what I did. Like, you know, like some parts were difficult, but I think I learned from it in a way. At some point, I was thinking maybe I should have studied physics from the beginning, but maybe if I did, I wouldn't have understood that I didn't like engineering, you know, and I would have done some economics. So it's, I think you just collect what you have. What do you have done differently? No, I think it's what you have to know that I didn't want to leave Brussels when I decided to go to Mainz. I was really, I'm never going to leave Brussels. And somehow now it has been 5-6 years I'm outside Brussels. And actually, it taught me a lot, like about myself, about yeah, about many things. So I think I like, even some parts were hard, you know, I liked it.
Any more questions? That was kind of ish my question. So.
And I've managed to see a lot of places, which I really like. So this was pretty cool.
If you had to have a separate career outside of physics, what would it be?
So this I think of them. It would be public policy. I think I would come back to economics and try to work for public policy in an institution, like where you can have actually feedback from the politics, and you know you can make some research, give a report, trying to get feedback. I think this would be pretty cool. Because the only one aspect that pushed me to go to economics is to have the feeling that I was doing had a clear social impact, while with nuclear physics is kind of more convoluted. Let's put it this way. So I think if I was doing something else, I would look for something with more social impact. But in the end, when you're a teacher, you have social impact. So maybe becoming a teacher now it's okay. You know, like it brings something that I wasn't seeing before.
Where is your favorite place that you've traveled, and where is the place you would most like to go that you haven't been to yet?
The first place I traveled. I think it's very. So when I travel to all these places, I have a very tight group of friends. So we often go 8 people. So in this picture of Vietnam, we were actually 8. You had like 8 motorcycles. Because we went for a day, so my friends went on the back of mine. So I think I enjoy a lot the trip that were 1 month. So in Vietnam, we stayed 1 month. In Montreal, I stayed 1 month, actually twice. Montreal, Quebec, because I was not only there. California, I also spend a lot of time visiting. So I like when I have the experience of really like deplugging from anything, and I like to camp in the middle of nowhere. And you're camping there, you have no facility, and you see the sky. And nothing is related to what you're doing. Like at this moment, I can tell you, you don't think about nuclear physics. But so yeah, and the place I would like to go, I'm gonna see the map like that. I can think about it. So there is one place I would really like to go, but this I think is not too far, so most likely I will manage to go. I think I would like to go to Iceland, because I've never been and it seems kind of crazy with all the volcanoes. It seems like a mountain. And I guess I would like to go to Kenya as well, or Rwanda. Yeah, I have a friend living there, so I guess I could.
That star in South America, is that Sao Paulo or?
It's Sao Paulo, Rio. So my partner is Brazilian. So I actually spent some time in Brazil as well. So he's from Rio, so we often go to Rio, but he has family in Sao Paulo, so we go in the both states.
Excellent. More questions.
I don't think I really needed the microphone for this. This is kind of a silly question, but what's the gold star around Lake Tennessee?
Like where?
The gold star
Left in the US?
in the US.
I think this is supposed to represent when I came to work in 2019 because it's
Oh.
my PhD year.
All right.
So I think this is supposed to represent a trip, maybe Chicago, because I went to a trip in Chicago.
We still have 5 more minutes, and I plan to
There's a
use
question.
every time of Chloe's.
What was the hardest part about choosing your career past a postdoc? Like, like where you want?
And I was thinking what I would do.
Yeah, because like you can go into industry and other.
Yeah, so the
So-
thing is that for me, it went really fast. I didn't have much time because
Mm.
I got this fellowship that was 5 years, and I applied for permanent position 1 year and 3 months in. So I worked one year, arrived in Livermore in September. In November, I was sending applications. So because my mentor said, you really should. So like, okay, let's try it. I have this rule, like you shouldn't self-censor, so whatever you send it. And it happens that I got some interview, and it's why. But then I asked to postpone my start date actually, because I want to spend, it was so fast, everything went fast. So I didn't really have the time to think about it too much.
Mm.
And also when you have this kind of fellowship, like they were saying, you're expected to find a permanent job. You're expected, they don't give it to you, but they were putting a bit of pressure. So you're like, okay, let's find a permanent job.
Yeah, I was just asking kind of like how that was. I guess there's a lot of pressure. Or...
Yeah, it was stressful. Honestly, this fellowship at the beginning was very stressful because I felt I didn't deserve it, and I felt I would not be up to the task. And then you start working. You have nice mentor that say, "Come on, you're doing great. Let's do this," and then you're still here, and then you learn that okay, things take time. Like the paper that Alpha did that I did a lot during this. It took me a year of work, and I learned something new. It was difficult. Things take a lot of time. But that's okay.
So you did feel imposter syndrome?
Yes, of course. I mean, you still do.
You still do? Really?
Everybody does. I think
Really?
that the only thing is that you get better at it to manage.
Tell us.
So last week, for example, I was in this conference in Vancouver, and I had to give a plenary talk in front of 250 persons in a huge auditorium, like maybe 5 times this size, or I don't know. Technically, I was not feeling great. But then you go for it, and then it's behind you. So I think that you just get better at dealing with it. I could sleep the night before, but before I couldn't. So, but I think it's always going to be there.
I mean, the supportive mentors helping.
Yeah, and so the thing is that it helps, but also you learn. I have less contact with my mentor now than I had before. So you also learn how to deal with it. Meaning the way, if you feel imposter syndrome, which I'm guessing almost everybody does normally at different kind of level, you really get better at it. I really think that the more you advance, the more you have to find strategy. If you don't get better at it, that's really something you have to ask for help to get better at it. Like somebody who can give you some perspective on how to deal with this. Another for me is compartmentalizing. So I'm stressed. I have to do this talk. I have to do this. I'm like, okay. And I know that not everybody can do that. I'm like, let's not thinking about the fact that I'm stressed. Let's focus my mind on one thing. I do it and it's done. And then, but yeah, I don't know if it's an advice easier to say than done, but this is what I'm thinking when I'm just like, okay, calm down, one thing at a time. You know, like.
Any final question for Chloe? Please.
What are some of your budget-friendly travel advice?
Good question. So for me, I always camp. And when I was a student and I was broke, I always camp in the wild. So I didn't have to pay any lodging. And I used to hitchhike. So I didn't have to pay buses and everything. So this was very budget friendly. So and then I was eating like cheap stuff from the supermarket because I really wanted to travel, so I didn't want to work in the summer. And so you do with what you have. Now I have less vacation, so I don't hitchhike anymore. I just rent a car. So yeah. So and in the US, I would say there are some apps where they tell you where you can camp for free. Oh. Yeah, there are some apps on your phone. I use them in California. So often when it's free, you don't have much facility. So you have to be like nature, I guess. I don't know how to put it this other way. But you have free camping, and if you don't pay the stay, it's already way easy.
This is a dumb. What's the app called?
Yeah. I can find it again. Because I use it in California and then I changed my phone. So
We will add the link to the slides that will be available in the drive. You all, I hope you all have access to the drive where we have the slides and the YouTube video, the YouTube channel where we have the video. If you don't, let me know and I will share them with you. Any final question because we run out of time? This is the last one. You have the honor for last Chloe's question. Go for it.
Where did you go in Whistler? And I thought your talk was good in Whistler.
Thank you.
I didn't think.
Like on Wednesday afternoon, you mean?
Yeah, on Wednesday afternoon, whenever, because you like traveling, right? So I was
Yeah,
wondering where
so
you
in
went.
Whistler, I have to say, because I'm teaching this week, I was pretty busy. So we just went on Wednesday afternoon to a small hike with Philomena, but it was raining. That's kind of the bad. And when I'm going to conference, I'm trying to attend the talks, and the schedule was pretty packed.
Yeah, it was.
So I felt like I would come back, but maybe outside of a specific event. Like if I visit Vancouver, like spending a decent weekend there. So we went to a fall called Nairn Falls. It was 20-minute drive from Whistler and like half an hour to see the falls and half an hour back. It was short. I wanted to first hike up the mountains, but it was so cloudy that I was thinking I would not see anything.
It was expensive to go up there.
Yeah. Yeah, it was pretty expensive conference. And where did you go?
I didn't go anywhere. It was
Very good. And with that, let's thank Chloë. She lives in the second floor next to all the theory friends. You can go and annoy her if you want to chat with her. And I will keep you posted for the next iteration of this on September. Thank you for coming. This was excellent.